Welcome to the post-lunch session of this conference. This session will be taken by Dr. Amrish Joshi, who is the AVP Healthcare and Life Sciences under the Smart Decision Services wing, and he represents Genpact. Over to you.
Good afternoon, all. Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay. So, good afternoon, all. No major introduction. I'll just come to the topic, and we'll try to wrap up. And I'll be interested to know all your questions and try to address them. That is the most important part of it. So, the subject which I would be talking about is the relevance of big data to the pharma industry and life sciences industry, how we call it. So, the three things, major things which I'll be talking about would be as follows. One is trying to answer, is big data currently contributing to life sciences industry? That's number one. Second is, what are the recent trends with respect to the development which are happening in this space? And second is, what are the major challenges or nuances around this subject for pharma industry? And the third is, what are the decisions at a global level pharma organizations are taking with respect to big data? Okay. So I'll be touching upon these three aspects in interrelationship, in some form, in silos, in some interrelationship as well. Okay. Okay. So post lunch, health is one of the subjects I am touching upon, and which is applicable to all of us in this room. Consider that this room is a universe. Say, for example, this room is a universe where this is the only world for us. Say, for example, now all people in this room are individuals. All these vacancies would be contingency or whatever you can think of. And I'm talking about what are the data we have in this room right now. So the data when you think about health perspective, the data would be maybe the blood pressure of each one of you, could be the respiration speed or at what speed your heart is beating, could also be your blood glucose levels, could be many clinical parameters which are happening inside the human body, could be your eyesight where you are looking at, or could be your body movements. So a lot of many things which are there available in this room, and this is the data all about. I don't hope and I don't wish that somebody is suffering from some disease or right now in this room, but consider that there are some individuals suffering from some disease and disorders. Now what is happening here is there is a lot many data available here which is there in this room, which is your body is working right now, your heart is beating, your respiration is happening, something wrong also might be there, something good also might also be there. And suppose I have a mechanism to collect all this information and technology to support me in getting all this data at one place, analyze it as we talk in a live streaming manner. Whether I'll be able to use this data, how I will be using it. So that's the question pharma organizations are trying to answer at this moment. Okay. And now, as you can see on this slide, so that is one aspect to it. The health of an individual, any individual in this world is one aspect to it. And there's a huge amount of data available. It's just a question about how to capture this information and how to use it in a pharma healthcare industry perspective. Okay, that is one. Second thing is, typically, I don't know how many of you are from healthcare pharma industry, but then broadly you would know that a lot of things which happens even before a drug is being manufactured or discovered. The huge amount of investment being made, it is called around almost 1 billion of USD dollars are invested to discover a new product in a pharma industry. Now that amount of money and that amount of investment is going and starting from where? It's starting from synthesis of any new compound. So there are labs, there are a huge amount of R&D labs across the globe which are discovering new molecules, and they're testing. They don't know what this molecule will be used for. So they will first of all discover a new molecule. They'll try and test this molecule will be used for asthma, will be used for diabetes, will be used for some derma condition or XYZ. They are trying to manufacture and try to see all this permutation combination. Once that is done, a huge amount of investment and the process goes is in making that drug in a form so that it could be uh, 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 um, um, available in a form of drug, in form of capsule, tablet, or injectable, or whatever you're saying. Once that is also done, then there is a huge amount of clinical trial process, and the clinical trial process is also a lengthy process, almost 8 to 10 years of period for on any life sciences manufacturer to work around. And when you talk about clinical trials, it could be depend upon the phase of the trials. It could be as small sample size as 100 people, or as large as maybe say 20,000 or 50,000 of people who are suffering from a particular disease. So what I mean to say here is there's huge amount of data available on the clinical side of it as well, on the manufacturing side of it as well, on the discovery phase as well as once this is done, then the company is worried about how to make it profitable, I can reach, how I can take this product to multiple locations across the globe. So there is a regulatory bodies. There are a lot many regulatory bodies by countries. So the regulatory bodies are there. Like for India, there is an Indian FDA. For US FDA, and in UK and Europe, there are MHRA UK and a lot of other governing bodies. So they will assess whether this drug is safe, its efficacy. They will approve the drug, and then only a manufacturer can market that product in the country. So there is huge amount of regulatory data also available. So once the product is available in the market, a company is selling and selling is happening. Of course, there is a competitive environment. So say for example, a person who is suffering from diabetes might have, a doctor might prescribe him X, Y, Z or whatever options is given. So from a pharma company perspective, there is huge competition there. A doctor can prescribe his product or some other competitor's product. Okay. So in that case, there is huge amount of sales market data availability as well, which is huge in itself, maybe going at a level of a patient to a physician to hospital, clinic, XYZ. Okay. Along with this, there is also one very important huge source of data for pharma healthcare life sciences industry is on the genetic side, which is on what is the gene side of it, or you would have heard and listened about chromosomes and thought about how each DNA in each of us is different and how we are different from each other, correct? So the huge amount of data on the genomic side as well, which is available, which is again used on the pharma and the discovery side as well. Another thing, just a recent newspaper, even today's newspaper was talking about H1N1 infection, which is swine flu, and this swine flu was not known maybe 5 years, 10 years ago. Now we are talking about swine flu. Now we are talking about what to do about this, because there's a severe infection, and severe infection leading to a lot of mortality and a lot of distress in any country. Like in Mumbai, the figure which I remember today's paper was somewhere around 57 people died. In Rajasthan again the same way, and it's a huge outcry and the government initiatives in terms of saving people out of that disease. So that information, how many people are suffering, who is suffering, what are they taking, what treatment they are taking, is it efficacious, is it not efficacious, is a huge amount of data available. Whether it is patients, doctors, not again doctors, you'd be worried about if I'm suffering from this disease, where to go, whether I should prescribe, whether I should go to my family physician or to Apollo Hospital, to Fortis, or to which clinician, you know. So there's huge amount of information available on doctors and physicians as well, and hospitals and clinics. Which diagnostic labs? So whether I need to go for PAL lab or different kind of labs for my tests. Pharmacies, so huge amount of data source for pharmacies where I basically purchase my drugs, and where a pharmacist, maybe in Indian scenario, they might not be noting who is taking the drugs from them, but in developed countries, a pharmacist might keep every information of who is taking and getting these drugs from them. Insurance and payers, again, I have an insurance policy, medical policy, maybe 2, 3 of them, and similarly, every one of you in this room would have. So the insurance companies having your health records in terms of your information on specific disease areas is another big thing as a source of the data. And as I said last, on the market and the sales side, which is could be an internal sale data by a company. So what I mean to say here is data is all around. In terms of healthcare licenses, data is all around. There's no scarcity of data. The issue with respect to it is now is somebody using this data? Should I use this data? Should I make it more business sense out of this data in terms of taking any critical decision? And that's the question. I'll maybe consecutive slide may try to answer. So as I said, there are several sources of data available. It's and when you talk about the big data perspective, it's about how I can triangulate these multiple data sources in a meaningful way, in a very lively form, so that ultimately I am able to take some decisions from a pharma or a healthcare organization perspective. That's the biggest question everybody would be trying to address, whether it is through technology, whether it is through putting a good mechanism around how to capture and source those data, or it could be how to put analytics on top of it. Just a few figures, not very important, but the point here is the big data for healthcare is pegged as almost 300 to 500 billion dollars. This is just a rough figure. This is coming from some journal which I picked. As an example, the big data for healthcare is growing almost by 33% year on year as of now. It's again a data source. And why it is growing is, as one example, the electronic medical records. So whatever records you have in a hospital, say for example you go for a hospitals like Apollo and Fortis, say for example in Indian scenario, all your records are there available in electronic form as well now, and they save it. So this electronic medical records in USA, for example, by 2015, in early 2015, only 30% of physicians and hospitals were using EMR. However, in 2012 and now current scenario, it has gone beyond 70-80%. So each and every information which is captured in hospital, say for example a patient lying on an ICU bed, his parameters are going BP and every glucose level and everything is being recorded on a minute to minute basis. ECG and everything is being recorded and is saved in the hospital. Now, can I use this data? Can I use this information for my drug manufacturing or for my R&D? That's the question. Also, one of the latest, I think, related subject is where from the Obama perspective and from the push perspective, what is happening is there have been around $200 million investment Obama has suggested for big data research and development initiative in 2012. Now this is still going on. So the point here is the big data for pharma is not only driven by organizations, it is also driven by the push from the regulators, from the insurance companies, from the payers, because they are worried about how much money I am as a government or as an insurance company I am paying for patients' lives to insure them. Am I getting the return out of it? Can I save that cost? So there are lot many pushes there from these regulated bodies on the big data initiatives. That's something very different from other industries maybe, but this is something very important here. Okay, just talking about very few recent trends in the market, which again you might relate directly, indirectly, is one of the organization Blue Shield, which is an insurance company in US, and Nan Health is developing a technology for evidence-based care. Now, what is evidence-based care is where you are looking at sign and symptoms of a disease, you're looking at different parameters of a patient on a particular treatment, and try to see whether if I give this X drug versus Y drug, what is the impact, whether the patient get recovered in 5 days, 10 days or no. Getting that information from maybe thousands and thousands of patients in a long run, am I able to create an algorithm saying that in these kind of patient groups or in these kind of genomic mix of people, this kind of drug will be more efficacious as compared to the other drug. So that kind of evidence-based medicine is being they are trying to evolve and develop. That is what one of the initial trend which is seen. Second is company like AstraZeneca and WellPoint again have come up with conducting real world studies where they will use this real world data from clinical trial and relate to the sales, so that AstraZeneca as an organization is saving on the R&D. Okay, so they want to focus the R&D investment. As I said, almost 800 to 1 billion of investment in one drugs discovery, which a pharma company is making in a span of 10 to 12 years. This amount of money, they are trying to say whether I am putting that money in the right place, whether I can get some information from the big data technology and the investment which or for the information which is available to help me in directing my money, directing my investment. So that is another which very good initiative by pharma company. This is just one example. Lot many all leading global players are doing it now. They are worried about each penny they spend, correct? And therefore they are investing on big data in a big way. The issue is the pharma companies are not well prepared at this moment. And whatever I am hearing and whatever you would hear about pharma and big data is, they are doing as an experimental right now. They are trying to do a lot of pilots. They are trying to do a lot of seeing whether this will work or this will not work. So it's still a nascent stage. And the reason is because there are a lot many intermediaries in between. Like as I said, payers and the insurance companies. Pharma company doesn't have data. Who has data? Major of the data is available with insurance players right now, because they know my patient. So say for example, an insurance company have enrolled thousands of people in its policy. Hey, can I get water? Now, out of these people who are insured are taking drugs, insurance companies is paying that money for those patients. But the point here is pharma company doesn't have the data. Whether the patient is using the drug or not, they are not aware of. They would be selling the drug, that's fine, but the data is not available with them. Okay. Recently, almost 1.5 years back, there was a survey conducted with CXOs and CIOs in global pharma organizations. They asked few things, and I've just bring some of those insights here. Okay. And one of the things which they asked is, what you will do with the big data? So the pharma organization, the CXOs and CIOs answered in some manner. The key insights here is, they say we'll try to understand where the market is growing, where the opportunities are, where I should invest more, help me in taking strategic decisions, also in operational efficiencies, also in identifying new products and new services. So that is where they want to invest the big data. Another question, whether you will use this big data for R&D, marketing, or for what? So the key answer was, we'll use this data for more of in R&D right now and less on sales and marketing. Again, a perspective. On the challenges side, when it was asked, what are the key challenges with respect to big data in the life sciences industry, which you as an industry face? The key challenges what they highlighted was, The biggest challenge again, and maybe applicable to all of us in this room who come from the industry side or maybe from the technology side of it, is the biggest challenge they highlighted is we have the data, but we don't know how to analyze the data. We don't have analytics capabilities. One. Second, we don't have culture inside our organization which help us in sharing information among ourselves. So one company versus B company to C company, they don't have mechanism to share information and data. Third, they don't have access to data. Like as I said, electronic medical record, which are there in a hospital, they don't